All right, guys, so I want to talk about what just happened at Yale University because it gives us a little bit of an insight into the draconian crackdown against any and all dissent when it comes to Israel in this country, specifically on our universities and college campuses. So here from Dropsite News, they say breaking. Yale has banned a student group for protesting an Israeli minister who calls for Gaza's ethnic cleansing and starvation. So Itamar Ben-Gvir, who you might recognize because we've covered him numerous times before on this channel. He's here in the United States. He's Israel's national security minister, who is a convicted racist who was found guilty of inciting hatred and supporting Koch, a group designated as a terrorist organization, even by Israel. A little bit more on his background here. They say from the New Yorker, he has been convicted on at least 8 charges, including supporting a terrorist organization and incitement to racism, compiling a criminal record so long that when he appeared before a judge, they said, quote, "We had to change the ink on the printer." Another interesting factoid here, Ben-Gvir skipped conscription, and he married someone even more radical than he was. Ben-Gvir met Ayala Nimrati around 2002 when he was 26 and she was 15. Interesting, to say the least. So this guy, Itamar Ben-Gvir, was scheduled to speak at Shabtai, a private Jewish leadership society at Yale. This comes about a day after he had been calling for bombing Gaza's food and aid depots, openly advocating for collective punishment and deepening the humanitarian catastrophe for the territory's starving population. So in response to him speaking at this Yale event, roughly 200 students staged an encampment protest at Yale's Beneki Plaza in response. The protest disbanded at around 11 p.m. and Yale acknowledged that the demonstration, quote, was not affiliated with any recognized student organizations. But despite this, the university revoked the official status of Yales for Palestine, the campus chapter of Students for Justice in Palestine, for its alleged involvement. So you understand what's going on here, right? We have a man here, Itamar Ben-Gvir, Minister of National Security for Israel, who is openly genocidal, who is openly pro-ethnic cleansing, a guy who was so racist that he was even too racist for Israel, right? And he was convicted of incitement to racism. A guy who was openly calling for not only starving the entire population of Gaza by cutting off food, water, aid, and medical supplies, but who's calling to bomb the limited aid that they do have inside of Gaza. And this guy is speaking at this Yale-associated event. You got a couple hundred protesters who show up in response to that, and Yale looks at this situation, and what do they conclude? They say, obviously we have to crack down on the people who would dare to speak out against this genocidal fascist monster. That's what Yale decided to do. Let's ban this Students for Justice in Palestine chapter at Yale. That's what we should do. That's a reasonable course of action, right? Now, in terms of the allegations that Yale is making that led them to make this kind of a decision here. They say here from the Yale Daily News that the Yale News release cites concerns that were raised of disturbing anti-Semitic conduct at the gathering and says that the university is investigating. So this was a radical anti-Semitic protest that was taking place here, right? They had no other choice. That's why they had to ban this organization. The announcement did not specify what those concerns were. Oh, and the university spokesperson declined to provide further information. Oh, about the alleged anti-Semitic conduct or who was contacted about potential disciplinary action. So, in other words, it was a radical anti-Semitic, anti-Jewish protest that took place, but we just don't have any evidence to show you that that's actually the case. Okay, now we also have one of the sort of viral moments that came out of this that's been floating around online that people are citing as evidence that this was anti-Semitic in some way. So a little bit on that here. They say, Harmeet Dillon, the Assistant Attorney General for the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division, reposted an X post or Twitter post by Nathaniel Crisp, a Jewish Yale student, which said that Jewish students were blocked from walking through Yale's campus. Crisp's tweet included a video of pro-Palestine protesters forming a circular chain on Beneki and not permitting him to pass. So, who is this guy, and what are they talking about here? Well, here's the video. So, this is what they're saying is evidence from Nathaniel Crisp here of Jewish students apparently being acted on in some sort of a hostile way by these protesters. Let's watch a little bit of this video and listen for the suggestion that the protesters give him.
We will not rest this close. We will not stop. We will not rest this close. We will not stop. We will not rest this close. cause. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this cause. Divest. We will not stop. We will not rest this cause.
So you can hear them there through the chanting say, you can just go around, right? Now, let's be clear. This guy is not just like casually trying to traverse Yale's campus and go to somewhere that he needed to go. No, he showed up here with a camera person, and he's explicitly trying to walk through the center of this arm chain that the protesters have, a very standard thing that you see at these sort of protests, instead of just walking like 10 feet that way and going around the protest. So he's not the victim here. He's trying to make himself artificially into a victim here, right? That's why he's here in the first place, is to get this kind of a clip so that he can weaponize it, right? Now, more background on who this guy is. Here from Thomas Birmingham. As somebody who was there at the protest, the Jewish student the YDN quoted as saying he was blocked from Yale campus was, number one, attempting to forcefully move into the circle of students while filming them. Number two, was the first to inform the administration that the encampment was being built. Interesting. So almost as if he knew exactly what this was and wanted to get this little moment and wasn't, again, just trying to go to his next class or something. And number three, he's a frequent Fox News guest. So again, this is just completely artificial, conjured up bullshit to try to portray this protest as anti-Semitic when it's clearly not the case. This guy was looking for his moment, and I guess he got his moment because the Attorney General for the Justice Department and their Civil Rights Division is retweeting this as if this is some anti-Semitic attack that happened here. Now, we had another picture of some of the protests that were happening. This is specifically at the event itself where Itamar Ben-Gvir was going to speak. And I want you guys to notice something about the picture here. What do you notice down here at the bottom? Well, I see a lot of signs. There were some people who were chanting in this crowd and people waving flags and stuff. But if you notice down here, as is the case at many of these kinds of anti-Israel or pro-Palestine protests, there are a bunch of Orthodox Jewish people who are helping to lead this protest. Here we got some signs. One says, the state of Israel does not represent world Jewry. Another one here says, Judaism forbids Israel. And the byline is, Jews condemn Ben-Gvir, a war criminal. So wildly anti-Semitic protest that's taking place and is apparently being led by Jewish people. Okay. Now, this is all, of course, happening with the background of Donald Trump's full-blown attacks on universities for these kinds of protests that have been taking place since Israel's genocide began around 18 months ago. The Trump administration so far has withheld or threatened to withhold hundreds of millions of dollars from universities if they don't sufficiently crack down on free speech, if they don't sufficiently crack down on criticism of Israel. He's also threatened to try to literally hijack the curriculum and the decision-making process on who gets to work at some of these universities, who's admitted to some of these universities. So the Trump administration has been essentially trying to hijack higher education in this country, specifically when it comes to the issue of, perpetuating Israel's genocide in Gaza, to make sure that nobody is allowed to speak out without severe consequences being dropped on their heads. And at the same time, in an even more draconian fashion, not only has he been trying to exert extreme pressure on these universities to crack down on these students, but they've also been directly revoking student visas, and in some cases green cards, like in the case of Mahmoud Khalil from Columbia University, and deporting them from the country for daring to speak out against Israel. In some circumstances, not even for leading protests against Israel, but with Rumeysa Öztürk for writing an op-ed that was critical of Israel. Not the United States even, right? We're not throwing people out of the U.S. because they're critical of the U.S. government and they hate America or something like that. For criticizing a foreign government, for writing an op-ed against a foreign government, right? So these are the lengths that the Trump administration is trying to go. And I'm not trying to shove responsibility for all of this onto the Trump administration, because a lot of these crackdowns were also happening under the Biden administration. There's a huge amount of blame to go around here, whether it's Republicans, whether it's Democrats, whether it's Trump, whether it's Biden, and whether it's these universities themselves, which in many circumstances have folded to a large extent and have done a lot of the cracking down themselves by their own volition, right? Now, this is also coming, importantly, with the background of what are these people actually protesting? Well, some of the latest here, out of what Israel is doing in Gaza and the West Bank, Here from an Israeli human rights organization, B'Tselem. Their headline is Manufacturing Famine. Israel is committing the war crime of starvation of the Gaza Strip. This is from April of 2024. So this is now a year old. And this is, of course, outdated at this point, because now we're at the point where for over a month since the ceasefire disintegrated at Israel's demand, they've completely cut off any and all food, aid, water from getting in to Gaza. So this situation has gotten even worse. This is from April of 2024, a full year ago. And this Israeli outlet accused Israel of committing the war crime of starvation inside of Gaza, something that Itamar Ben Gvir, the guy who was speaking at that event, is proudly and openly in favor of. He wants to starve the population of Gaza. This is also coming at the same time that Israel is continuing with their controlled demolition of entire portions of Gaza. This is a video that came out from what looks to be an Israeli tank rolling around southern Gaza in Rafah, where you can see all of this heavy machinery just ripping down buildings to the ground to make way for, I guess, Israel and the United States' eventual takeover, if you take them at their word. Now, it's also coming at the same time that we have continued targeting and killings of journalists within inside Gaza. At this point, Israel has killed over 100 journalists in Gaza. They say here from Dropsite, Israel has assassinated the Palestinian journalist and family in central Gaza. An Israeli airstrike targeted the tent of Palestinian journalist Saeed Amin in Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. The bombing killed Abu Hassanin and his wife, as well as their young daughter, Sarah. So they say that he was nearly 20 years old at Al-Aqsa Radio, specializing in audio engineering and radio mixing. His killing is part of Israel's ongoing campaign to silence Palestinian journalists. And this comes just, I believe, a couple of weeks after we covered the story of one of the Dropsite contributors, a Palestinian journalist, Hossam Shabbat, who was also killed in a targeted strike on his vehicle inside of Gaza by Israel. So the endless killing of anybody who would dare to try to share what's happening with the world is continuing. We also have at the same time horrifying images coming out of some of the latest strikes. Here we can see again from Dropsite, a new Israeli attack sparked a fire and burned alive at least 11 people while they slept at a school that was turned into a shelter in Gaza City. And this is coming from Anas al-Sharif here, posting a video from on the ground of what this literal scene from hell looked like. We also have Haaretz confirming what I covered on this channel a few days ago at this point, that in killing of Gaza aid workers, IDF troops fired indiscriminately for over 3 minutes, some at point-blank range, talking about the story of the 15 Palestinian medical workers who were executed by Israel inside of southern Gaza. And we talked about this, again, in one of my previous videos that you can go and watch if you want the full breakdown. But the synopsis here is that Israel, on 3 back-to-back occasions, killed, an ambulance full of medical workers, then further ambulances and a convoy showed up. They shot at them as well, killing all of them. And then a UN vehicle showed up shortly after, and they also opened fire on that, killing those inside. Now, afterwards, they proceeded to bury the bodies in a mass grave, to destroy the vehicles, to try to cover up the evidence, and then proceeded to lie to the entire world about what had happened. So now we have even Israeli outlets like Haaretz exposing their lies. Now, finishing off here, because it's also to point out it's not just Gaza, it's also the West Bank. The headline here again from the Israeli outlet Haaretz is "Don't look away, Israel's annexation of the West Bank is already here." So the bombing continues, the assassinations continue, the ethnic cleansing continues, the genocide continues, and if you dare to speak out against it, if you dare to protest it here in the United States, then you're going to face significant consequences, apparently. This is the direction that we are going as a country.
Politic guy has the best politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying